Welcome, everybody. I'm just going to call this meeting to order. And right now, we'll start with the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Mayor. The lands we know today as the Township of Centre Wellington have been home to Indigenous peoples since time immemorial. We acknowledge that we are on the treaty lands and traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee. With increasing encroachment by non-Indigenous settlers in the Township of Centre Wellington, the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee could not continue their traditional lifestyle and settled in their villages along the Credit River and in the Grand River Valley. These Indigenous nations uphold their treaty rights within our jurisdiction. Today, the Township of Centre Wellington remains home to Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We are grateful to have the opportunity to share and respect Mother Earth and are committed to building constructive and cooperative relationships with Indigenous nations.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Now we'll move down to item 3, addendums and corrections to the agenda. There are a few things that we'd like to move up after 8.5. We'd like to move 8.9, which is the church property, and then followed by 8.15. If everyone's good with that, we'll move on. Disclosure of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Seeing none. And presentation and announcements, starting with myself. Right now it's fairly quiet at the county, so I'll pass on that, and we'll move down to item 5.2, Councillors Committee updates, and looking to Council for updates. Councillor McDonald.
I attended the Victoria Park Senior Centre meeting on July 7th, and some things to note: they will be having a peach social in August. I wasn't given the date, but I can find that out. Just send me an email and I'll find out. I would like to note that they do a lot of bus trips up at the Senior Centre, and they're full all the time. They did have some spots left, I believe, in December. So if anyone would like to reach out and go on a bus trip, go right ahead. And that's it.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Any other councillors to provide updates? Okay, seeing none, thank you for that. Delegations, no delegations at this time. Consent items. Consent agenda items are considered routine in nature and are voted on collectively. However, any member of council may request one or more items to be removed from the consent agenda items for separate action. So I'll just read the, where's the recommendation? Oh. Yep, sorry. Yeah, right there. I'll just read the recommendation that the Council of the Township of Centre Wellington approve consent agenda items 7.1 through to 7.3. Are you moving it or you have a question?
I have a question. I'd like to speak to the emergency grader repair 7.1, please.
Okay. And who will speak to that?
We need a question first.
Oh, what is the question? Oh, a comment or, oh, okay. We need a question though. Is it a question in terms of, is a question of cost or? Yes, okay, there's the question. Okay, who's to speak to that?
Colin.
Colin?
Through you, Mayor, I'll ask my question first. I've noted that emergency grader repairs in the amount of $76,015. That was done through the procurement process, and I am glad that Dakota Truck Services Limited was picked. So I'm just confirming it went through the procurement process.
Through your Mayor Waters, yes, we have a special provision within the purchasing procurement bylaw, which enables us to enact emergency repairs for equipment should it pose a public health or other requirement under that. But the requirement following that is that should such emergency procurement take place, that staff does report to council, and this is just facilitating that need.
Thank you for that. And I'm glad through the process that someone local was chosen. Thank you.
Anything further on the consent items? Okay, I'll read the recommendation again that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington approve consent agenda items 7.1 through to 7.3. Do I have a mover on that? Councillor Adams, seconder Councillor McDonald. Any further questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Thank you. Now we move down to consideration of reports. Item 8.1, housing needs assessment report findings, and we have Brett Salmon to speak to that. Welcome, Brett.
Thank you. Just brief. Before I turn it over to Eric from Watson, in my report, you'll see that council was required by the federal government in order to do a housing needs assessment in order to comply with the requirements of our funding under the CCBF fund. And there was a deadline originally of March 31st of 2025 to complete that housing needs assessment. We retained Watson and Associates economists to do that report. The report is filed in the form of a standard federal template that identifies the data that's required. So that original March 31st requirement was extended to the end of June, and we submitted in mid-June on June 11th. We got word back on June 17th that our template was accepted and met all the requirements. So we fulfilled the federal requirement for funding, but as part of the terms of reference also calls for a public-facing report to be prepared. So Eric Carvinen from Watson Associates is presenting on Zoom to present the housing needs assessment report. And following that, we'll go through the report and identify the key things and bring a recommendation with actions that we can take following that. So we've said in our recommendation that we'll report that back to council by the end of September. Thank you. Okay.
So what we'll do is, why don't we move along, and then when Eric, we see Eric in there, we can come back through, if that's okay. Okay, so we're going to move down now to 8.9, municipal approval of cemetery alterations. And I'm just looking at here, 8.9, Lucas. Is Lucas here? Yes. Thanks for switch hitting here, Lucas. And welcome.
My pleasure. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Today, this report, CS 2025-24, is seeking approval for a proposed alteration to the cemetery at 36 Henderson Street, which is a private cemetery located just beside St. John's Anglican Church here in Elora. The key request is that the approval for installing a new 180 niche columbarium, and we have outlined the public notice requirements as part of this process. So attending today in support of these alterations to the columbarium at 36 Henderson Street are representatives from SRM Architects and Zaire Construction. And also present is Ken and Paul Walker and building co-chairs Colleen Burry and Peter Barr from St. John's Church in Elora. The applicant, SRM Architects, represents the Anglican Church of St. John's in Elora. They propose replacing the existing 150 niche columbarium with a new 180 niche unit. And note, the report today does state 160, but that was an error in the information that was provided to the township. The actual number of niches within the columbarium are 180, although there is no footprint change to the design and no implications to any site changes that way. The request is to comply with the Funeral, Burial, and Cremation Services Act, requiring municipal approval when public interest is affected. So regarding consultation and planning with this report, several prior approvals have been achieved. The heritage permits were obtained last October. Minor variances for planning flexibilities were approved in December of 2023, and the site plan application was finalized on June 5th, 2025. Community engagement has shown there are no objections, with formal consultations yielding cooperative feedback and communication with property owners. The rationale for the requested relocation of the columbarium is driven by a proposed addition included in the site plan. This action aligns with public interest, enhancing the end-of-life options without raising concerns from the community. And I am happy to take any questions if you have them. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucas. comments, questions from council? Councillor Levoy.
Just a quick thought that came to mind. Is there space for them to I mean, they're only adding 30 spaces from 150 to 180?
Through you, Mayor. Yes. So they do require, from my understanding on the planning application, they do require to move the columbarium because of the renovations to the existing site for new renovations and growth of the site, construction happening there. So also the state of the columbarium is in a slightly disrepair. So they're seeking permission from the BAO, Bereavement Association of Ontario, to move the cremains and the columbarium to the new site located with an increased capacity.
And sorry, thank you for that. The question was more about, is there room for them to continue to grow as the needs dictate? Like with only a growth of 30 when our communities are growing so large, I'm just curious why it wouldn't be bigger now.
Sure. With your permission, Mayor, I may seek some consultation for request that one of the members here of the committee respond to that. Yes, if you'd may please come up, Colleen.
Welcome, Colleen.
In response to your question, we currently have 150 niches. The 180 niches will be double. So where before we were accommodating a single remains in the niche, now we'll be able to put 2 remains. So you could be interred, yes. Okay.
Okay. Any other further comments, questions from council? Thank you, Lucas. I'll read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington provide municipal approval of cemetery alteration to allow the construction of a new 160 niche unit columbarium to replace the existing 150 niche columbarium located at 36 Henderson Street, and that the notice of decision be published in a local newspaper and a copy of the approval notice be forwarded to the applicant and registrar of the Bereavement Authority of Ontario. Sorry, what did I say?
180.
Oh, what did I say?
You said 150.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. Gotcha. Okay, mover, thank you. Councillor McDonald, seconder, Councillor Wilton. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So move. Thank you. You've done your job today. How are we doing? How are we doing for Eric? Is he not here? Okay, as we're going to move down to item 8.15 then. Okay, so that's Parks and Rec's recreational plan final approval, a report from Pat Newsom. Welcome, Pat.
Are the consultants online? Not yet. But yeah, I was sending them back. Okay, anyways, maybe we can do the next one and then come back. Okay. Thank you.
Let's go to item 8.2, house demolition, business park, and do we have George here?
What's walking at me?
Mm-hmm. And we don't have any other folks that could speak to this one here. Okay. Okay, we're just moving along here.
Brett can.
Huh? Oh, Brett? Okay, thank you. Thank you for that.
Sorry, I'm wondering if, because we moved the meeting up, I'm wondering if some staff weren't aware that the meeting was moved from 2 to 1:30. In any event, there's a residence on the property at the business park. And when we acquired the property back in 2020, the agreement of purchase and sale gave the current occupant 5 years to continue residing in the dwelling, and that 5 years is up, so the dwelling is now vacated, and we are seeking council's authority to move forward with the demolition. George, you can come up and finish your report, please, because you've done all the details.
Welcome, George.
To Mayor Waters, members of council, my apologies. I didn't realize the delegation left so quickly. So further to Managing Director Brett Salmon's report, we met, if you recall in the report, the Economic Development and Prosperity Growth Committee met on June 19th to review this report. And the report was to assess the state of the building and determine if it was necessary to demolish. With that in mind, they made a recommendation to council that they should look at the demolition of this house, as well as the addition to the house, as well as the shed. There are three components, as you can see by the photos that were attached. As Brett has pointed out, in the agreement of purchase and sale, there was an existing provision for a 5-year lease. That lease has expired. The tenants have now vacated the property, and there are three reasons we're looking at demolition. One is the dwelling is in poor condition, and the retention is a liability for the township. Secondly, in terms of Investment Ontario, which is the economic development agency of the province, they have a program called Certified Sites, and there are a number of business parks from a variety of different communities across different municipalities that have a business park. We have our site on that website, but we don't have certification. It's a site certified program, meaning it's development ready. And the reason is the house and shed are impediments. And lastly, after 2 years of marketing the site with the house, we've had no interest. So with that in mind, we are looking at council with a recommendation to consider demolition. However, we do need to do a designated substance audit report to determine if there's any contaminants, given that there's a well there, there's a septic tank, the house structure, and all of the above. So with that in mind, we have a recommendation before council.
Thank you, George. Comments, questions from council? Okay, I'll read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington approve the recommendation of Economic Prosperity and Growth Committee to demolish the house and adjacent shed in the business park, and that council directs staff to complete a designated substance audit DSA on the house and adjacent shed located in the business park, and that council directs staff to return with a full project update and budget for council's consideration. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, second on that. Councillor Craddock, any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's so moved. Thank you, George.
Thank you.
How are we doing for, okay. So let's go down to item 8.3, Corporate Climate Action Plans Terms Reference, and and I see Martin coming to the lectern there. Welcome, Martin.
Mayor and Council. Yeah, so thank you. I'm really excited to present this to you today. So in alignment with the township's strategic plan and champion environmental stewardship and the actions laid out in the business plan of 2025 to develop a corporate climate action plan and integrate into township business processes, I've been busy at work. So this is really presenting that kind of roadmap, and the sense of it being an action plan really means that we've actually kind of landed with my feet running, and so the implementation of this plan, working with legislative requirements and kind of climate integration is already in place, which is actually informing the development of the plan. So this is kind of for the township and for Mapleton, who's my job is shared with, it's still a new process and leading so much learning. And what's been very encouraging so far is how that whole process and the staff I'm working with, how we're all moving together and asking the same questions and learning together. So this is a kind of a presentation of what this the climate action plan kind of actually also looks like in practice as well. So some concrete practical examples. Yeah, so if you'd like to, I did that right. Sorry, that one to the right. Right, okay. Thank you. There you go. All right, so the main primary objectives of the corporate plan is to establish a baseline of current GHG emissions, where we're starting from. Oh, too far. There we go. Ahead of myself. Conduct climate risk assessments for key infrastructure and services that we provide. Identify priorities and pathways and timelines for implementing effective mitigation and adaptation strategies. Set ambitious but achievable targets. Integrate climate considerations, often called a climate lens, into municipal business processes, and identify and secure climate budget allocation and funding sources. Okay. Oh, there's a bit of a delay. There you go. So I'll go through each of those steps and kind of relate it to the work that is currently happening as well. So as part of establishing a baseline current greenhouse emissions, part of our legislative requirements is to conduct energy reports annually, which have already been submitted for July 1st. And in that process, then I'm working with all different departments on how we collect and report data as well on energy use, fuel, gasoline, and natural gas and all sorts. So from what I've collected already, you can see there our initial corporate emissions inventory on the left there. Propane you can't see because this is really just so minimal. A whole kind of inventory. And the other thing that's not included on there is the biogenics, so basically from wastewater treatment, which I did initial calculations, but then compared to other municipalities, and it seemed larger than it needed to be. So it's a complicated kind of calculation. So I'm working with other agencies doing that. So that's not included at this time. To the right there is an example of what's called Carbon Hound, which is an energy tracking software, but also works on your sustainable development goals as well. This is a software that lots of the regional lower tier municipalities, in fact, Waterloo region and Cambridge are actually using this as well. Which we'd like to acquire as part of this, so just to keep in line with what other people are using, and it allows for a wider scope of emissions recording. As part of that, that software alone, membership for that and subscription is usually around $5,000 or $6,000 for the number of meters and recording that we needed to do. The Impact Network, which is part of this Sustainable Waterloo region, provide this software, but also as part of that network, there are so many other membership benefits. So although it's Sustainable Region Waterloo, other municipalities, including Mapleton and North Perth, have joined this network of climate practitioners, because in many cases, there's only one staff member in each municipality. So to work together, we're all on similar stages of our journey. So there's peer support, there's educational opportunities, and as part of that network as well, then there's even opportunities for other staff members and council to come in and do workshops and tours of other facilities. Already this has been really beneficial for the work I've done, and that's what's connected me to do some of the information on the solar presentation later as well, and connected me with folks that are doing business energy audits as well. So this has been fantastic. Okay, so that's the kind of the mitigation part. Looking at our energy consumption, working with our energy demand management plans, and coming up with a pathway forward. So climate adaptation planning is part of the next step. So with staff, there's teams of us working together. Currently, we're looking at national asset inventories and green infrastructure, and how identifying with all our assets and service areas, which ones are under the most vulnerable threats to climate change as well. So as far as identifying those assets and assessing risks, and then how that will then be integrated into our asset management and our decision making is part of what's happening there. The Green Municipal Fund offers funds to help with this climate adaptation integration. and also the Canadian Urban Institute. There's some supports on climate-ready infrastructure services. So there's professionals that can help with that development. Just gonna grab my water a second. Bring it up. So pathways, priorities, and targets. So this is kind of, sorry. This is kind of where understanding the climate science, really, of where you want to put your energy. So as part of the big project drawdown, where there's lots of resources and understanding about the clear science of what's happening with climate change, the real emphasis is on emissions reduction. So if you look at that, the graph there, the green line at the bottom is other kind of carbon removal projects, and whether that's technological or whether it's planting of forests. But you can see that the amount of carbon sink that happens during that time is a very slow process. So really, a lot of our efforts really need to be focused on that mitigation piece. So the report to the right there is part of our energy manager portfolio, which is our reporting, where we're looking at really the high emission facilities within the township, and that really becoming our focus of where we can have the biggest bang for our buck, I guess you could say, in emissions reductions. And that's really, as I said, is critical, and moving quickly on that is key. There it also shows a reduce, improve, switch, and generate. So it's not always possible to do these really big, deep retrofits financially, or it might be something that we've recently put in new, whether it's a refrigeration system at the JCC. But this kind of pathway of reducing our energy needs, looking at building envelopes, improving our processes and our systems, whether it's a water treatment or occupancy sensors, looking for opportunities to switch our fuel source, because as you can see from that chart at the beginning, natural gas is a huge footprint, and also with electrification of vehicles. And then ultimately, where you can get to as well is actually generating your own energy as well, which we'll come to later with the operations center. So climate lens integration. So as you find when you're putting a climate lens, it actually touches every aspect of the township's business processes. So really, we have to find ways in which that just gets integrated into our everyday kind of considerations. So here's some three examples of how that's happened so far. So in December, I think it was passed the new fleet policy, which considers at the time of replacement to consider which vehicles can be transitioned to electrification. So as part of that process, then we've put a fleet team together to look at actually the procedures involved with that. So already we can meet and look at what vehicles are actually being utilized, which ones we don't actually need to replace, the conditions of the vehicles, and so forth as a start. And right now, just because of market availability, to then look at the light duty vehicles, pickup trucks, SUVs, etc., that have been identified for replacement, then to conduct a secondary assessment on the sustainability, so on their operational needs, where they're parked, etc., to see whether they would be suitable for electric transition. There in the middle is part of the citywide, so part of our asset management. So we're currently meeting as well, looking at natural assets and green infrastructure. I know Greg's been very busy with mapping some of these things, and we're also deciding on how can we start recording that, what are the financial implications, and really what are the kind of risks involved to really integrate that into our asset management. The third one there on the right is the operations center. And through that process, it was a very strong focus on sustainability. So as part of that process, it was really important to involve the Savings by Design team, which is a services offered by Enbridge, to look at all different aspects of that design. And because of that process, there were lots of extra sustainability measures included in design of the building, window ratios, insulation, etc. And even recommendations for solar installation. So how do you pay for these things? So what's kind of seems to be a standard is that all the right way or best ways of doing things are usually more expensive. So within the climate budget considerations, it's really important to look at the entire life cycle of that project. So although you need to find ways of what funding is available to kind of cover some of those more upfront costs, but in the longer term, for the most part, then you're actually going to be some operational savings. So for an example here, I'll put two examples. One of the, I'll go into this a bit more detail in my next presentation, but the solar energy savings, for one, the amount you'd basically, your return on energy you're not buying, would be 1.25 million over that 30-year period of the solar installation. And then, but based on projected doubling of energy costs in the next 30 years, that's probably more like $2 million in savings. So more than pays for itself. In the EV transition study there, so I've compared all the vehicles that are kind of, ready, that can be transitioned out. And there was, the combustion engine vehicles and the EV vehicles. You can see there's some that are, it was more expensive to go EV, and some it was less expensive. But the overall net of that is actually, it was cheaper in the end over that life cycle period of the vehicles to go to EV. And then with all these considerations, then if you look at the environmental footprint, and that's a 97% reduction in CO2 just for vehicles. So that's kind of, so we have teams that are kind of like looking at these, what needs to be bought and when things need to be bought as well. And then also discussing how those funds are kind of any savings, whether they're kind of added to an environmental fund, or how to kind of manage those funds to help more good sustainable projects be done. So this is kind of, although the focus of the terms of reference is for corporate climate action, essentially getting our corporate ducks in a row. Reducing our environmental footprint, being more resilient as a township as well, and also all the financial savings. But while that's going on, the role of a municipality goes beyond that, and we know that how much kind of direct or indirect kind of influence we have on the community at large as well. So while this is going on, I'm working closely with other jurisdictions. So working closely with Wellington County, that I have a whole bunch of programs that we can support and we can promote as far as home energy transition, the Ridewell program, Taste Real, local food, the experimental acres, which is a regenerative agriculture, circular economy, and the Green Legacy program, and also green development standards. So trying to see what our role is within that. As far as education as well, a part of Climate Lens integration is also bringing staff up to speed with sustainable initiatives and climate science and literacy as well, but also finding opportunities within that to work together with other municipalities and the community. So we held a Load Zero carbon community buildings workshop, which brought in building and energy managers in from the lower tier municipalities to come together, and the school boards to share what's working and what isn't. And as far as sorry, going back to the community action as well, as part of the Impact Network and Sustainable Waterloo Region, they have developed a community-wide strategic plan where different community groups are taking responsibilities for elements of that plan. Public communication is to develop an action page on the township's website, a way to also kind of a dashboard of where we are on our journey and what we're doing, an opportunity for people to get engaged and involved themselves. Yeah, and then the last bit really is just a kind of a timeline of the work I'm currently working on and when to expect in the spring then to take the plan to the Healthy and Community Advisory Committee, and then to Council for final endorsement as well in the spring of next year.
Thank you, Martin. Questions? Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters, thank you for an awesome report. With regards to the energy that's going to be used in all of this, we have local builders that are trying to put in more EV sites for electric vehicles, and they're being told, no, they can't have that many sites because we don't have enough energy on the grid. How are we, do we know for sure that we will be able to do all this with the energy that's being supplied right now? Do you know?
So through you, Mayor. Do you mean for the township, for our own vehicles?
Or this package?
Yeah, no, exactly. A lot of those energy considerations are put into place, especially when it comes to the construction of the operations center as well. So the kind of expansion and the future needs of the EV infrastructure has already been looked at and included within that. Any potential sites for other, because we're kind of dissolving ourselves with other properties in that transition as well, where vehicles will continue to be parked. We've already assessed and visited those sites for suitability and costing for EV infrastructure, say at Public Works or the wastewater treatment plant, etc. So very aware of that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Evoy.
Thank you, through you. Thank you. Really informative. I look forward to hearing some harder numbers once you're able, with regards to budgeting, how much we need to begin to start incorporating for these switchovers once you have a better picture of what needs to be switched and the timeline therein. And think we would be remiss not to add some around education as well, to make sure that we're allocating dollars and resources so that we can ensure that our neighbors are understanding why we're making switches like this. To your point, front cost to make up for the end of the journey or the end of the project's rewards are substantial. So I think it's important that we put the right amount of time and money into it before you do it. So I look forward to those harder numbers.
Yeah. And can I, through you, Mayor, just to add on to that then. So as far as like initial costs, there are some initial costs for instance, for energy audits, just to get a sense of where we are, but also within that, pathways to net zero are presented. So it's not like a big outlay of money. It's like there's steps that lead it. So I said it was that kind of reduce, improve, switch, generate as well. And as far as the educational side of it as well, is because I ran a workshop and the county runs some workshop and the City of Guelph does, the climate leads we're all talking together to actually have a more of a strategic approach about what education gets brought forward and when, so everything's covered in that. Yeah.
Councillor Wilton.
Thank you, Mayor Waters, and through you. This is just a comment. I just want to congratulate you on getting to this point, because I think this is the very first climate action plan that Centre Wellington's ever had. So I think it's a really big step forward that we're looking at this and in such an objective and kind of a quality way in networking with our neighboring municipalities and that. So thank you for getting us to this point, and look forward to, as my colleagues have said, to seeing the next steps and seeing all the things that will come out of the action plan. So Thank you, Martin.
Yeah, thank you. And just to follow on that, thank you for you, Mayor, as well, is the fact that it's actually been such a collaborative process with all the staff in the township I work with as well. And we're all on the same page. So we're all working this together and having those great conversations, looking at a kind of bigger view. So thank you.
Any further comments or questions from council? Well, thank you very much for that presentation, Martin. I'll read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington receive report IS 2025-17 for information. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Evoy, seconder on that, Councillor McDonald. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. And you can have a little bit of a break because I think we're going back to we're going to go back to 8.15. So you can rest your vocals there, Martin. Okay. So 8.1.
Actually, 8.1.
Oh, 8.1. Okay. Sorry. Originally. Okay. Housing needs assessment report findings. Okay. And we have Eric on the line, and so Eric, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today on our housing needs assessment study findings. I'm happy to share my screen. at this time. Just give me one moment here to hopefully everybody can see my slide. Okay.
Yep, you're good
Great.
to go.
So great. Thank you very much. So I'm Eric Carvinen. I'm a manager with Watson and Associates Economists Limited. We were retained by the Township of Center Wellington to undertake this housing needs assessment study. We started this work last summer, and happy to be able to report on our study findings here to you here today. So the Housing Needs Assessment Study is an important foundational report. It provides an assessment of current and future housing needs and strategic recommendations for the township. The study analyzes a range of economic, demographic, and real estate trends to help inform housing needs and housing demand picture for the township over the coming decade and beyond, and will help the township inform policy related to housing and programming and tools over the coming decades. It's largely a technical assessment that was supplemented also by consultation with the community to help inform the strategic recommendations that we're presenting here today. So similar to many municipalities in Ontario, Center Wellington has experienced strong population growth and demand for housing over the past number of years. Over that same period, there has been also a significant erosion in housing affordability, both for ownership and rental units. And this is, of course, creating a lot of challenges in terms of market choice for residents in the community. The township is expected to continue to see strong population and housing growth over the coming 3 decades. The population base of the township is expected to grow from about 32,000 people in 2021 to about 58,000 in 2051. So over that 30-year period, that's adding another 26,000 people to the township, or an 81% increase. And so, of course, with all this population growth comes significant needs for new housing development and housing to accommodate future residents. It's important for municipalities like Center Wellington to maintain well-balanced and complete communities, to offer a wide range of housing options for residents, both in terms of various market segments, income groups, and household types. So before we get into this discussion at a local level, it's really important to look at this a little bit through a broader provincial lens. We have been living through a very strong period of broader population growth over the last 5 years. Provincially, that's driven the need for a much higher quantum and diversity of housing in the province. Albeit over the last 6 months, we have started to see a bit of a slowdown in population growth in the province, albeit there continues to be strong housing needs driven by population growth. At the same time, there's been a lot of changes in the provincial policy framework that's increasingly focused on expanding housing supply, both in terms of market choice and the need for more housing, as it relates to the new provincial planning statement that was released last year, as well as a range of legislation such as Bill 2023. And so it does create a lot of opportunities and challenges for municipalities as they address issues related to market choice and affordability in housing at the local level. So we're going to chat now a little bit about population and housing growth trends in Center Wellington to help us understand housing needs at the local level. The township has seen fairly strong population growth that really started to accelerate back in 2011 and in 2016, with population growth averaging about 2% annually between 2016 and 2021. And this was a rate that was significantly higher than the provincial average over that time. And since 2021, that growth has continued, increasing by about 7% to about 34,300 people in 2024. Based on the latest census data in 2021, the township has about 11,970 occupied housing units. large majority of those are low density, about 79%, represented by largely single detached as well as some semi-detached. About 7% of units being medium density, so this would be primarily townhouses, row houses, that type of housing form. And then about 14% is high density, so this would be a range of different types of low and mid-rise apartments and condominiums. The Center Wellington's housing base is also highly oriented to owner-occupied units. So about 81% of housing units are owner-occupied, with about 19% renter-occupied. So that share of renter-occupied units is quite a bit lower than the provincial average of 31%. And so this does really speak to how the housing sector in Center Wellington has historically been largely owner-occupied and focused on grade-related housing in the form of single detached units. Now, the housing sector is starting to evolve and change and diversify in Center Wellington. Housing development activity has been relatively robust over the past decade, averaging about 273 units per year on average. Over that period, the share of low-density housing, which has been the dominant form of housing in the township, has started to decline, with a much higher share of housing development focused on medium and higher density forms, which is encouraging because it does illustrate that the housing sector is shifting to provide for more market choice for more affordable housing options, particularly with higher density units. There's also important for us to recognize and review demographic trends in the township. Demographics do have implications and influence housing demand in the municipality. As with many municipalities in Ontario, Center Wellington population base is aging. The average age was 44 years old based on the 2021 census, which is slightly higher than the provincial average of 42 years of age. About 37% of the township's population is over the age of 55, and over the forecast period, the share of the population 55 and over is expected to continue to increase. In contrast, the share of the younger population of those 19 and under has been steadily declining over the last 20 years, representing about 23% of the population in 2021. This illustration provides a summary of where you're seeing population growth between the last census periods of 2016 through 2021. And you can see that the township saw notable increase in population growth that was highly concentrated in households of sort of middle-aged and younger families aged 25 to 44, as well as older age groups of those 65 and plus. Overall, because of the aging of the population, there is a downward trend in average occupancy levels in housing. Essentially, the number of persons per unit on average is coming down in Center Wellington, which is also increasing demand for smaller units. As part of this study, we also looked at the township's housing continuum. So we looked at a range of housing inventory in terms of market and non-market units to really understand housing supply in the township. This graph here, this table illustrates that about 97% of the township's housing stock is market housing. So these would be considered largely owner-occupied, as well as some rental housing that would be at market rates. About 3% of housing is non-market. So this is comprised of rent geared to income housing, as well as government subsidized affordable housing. And again, this represents about 3% of the total inventory. This is very similar to shares that we see in other municipalities of similar size to Center Wellington. Now, in undertaking a study of this nature, it was important for us to establish what we mean when we speak of affordable housing. This is a metric that gets used a lot, but how is that defined is very important. We have utilized the provincial definition that is published through the Provincial Housing Bulletin and now also identified through the new 2024 PPS. In accordance with that provincial definition, affordable housing in Centre Wellington is defined as for ownership, essentially a purchase price of no more than $427,600 for a housing unit. And for rental housing, these are rents that are no more than the numbers presented here. So for a bachelor unit, this would be affordable rental monthly rents of $1,145 a month or less. For one-bedroom units, $1,167. For two-bedroom units, $1,457. And for three-bedroom units, $1,305. And so these become the benchmarks under which we define affordable housing at the local level in Centre Wellington. Now, in contrast to those affordable benchmarks, I had mentioned earlier about housing affordability and the erosion in that, and we can see that in the housing cost appreciation in the township over the past 5 years. Average resale prices for owner-occupied units has increased by about 53%, rising from about $636,000 in 2020 to $975,000 in 2024. These are, obviously price points that are well above those affordable benchmarks that I mentioned in the previous slide. Similarly, average monthly rents have also increased based on CMHC data, increasing from about $1,070 a month in 2020 to about $1,350 a month in 2024, an increase of 26%. What's also very interesting in looking at new home prices in Centre Wellington, so this is looking at new builds that are currently available in your municipality, we have seen significant increases in prices for new single detached dwellings, which back in 2019, for example, averaged around $1.2 million on average per unit. Now those average price points are about $1.7 million, so significantly higher than what would be considered affordable for housing. Similarly, for townhouse development, which there's a significant amount happening in the township in terms of new development. Average prices for townhouses for new development has also increased, rising from about $525,000 in 2019 to about $754,000 per unit in 2024. So we're going to shift our discussion to consider existing and future housing needs in Centre Wellington. First, we considered housing needs in terms of the existing population. This included looking at a range of metrics, including households that are in core housing need. So this is defined and compiled by Statistics Canada through their census data. In 2021, there was about 605 households that were considered to be in core housing need in Centre Wellington. So these are basically households that essentially are living in inadequate homes, as far as homes that need significant repair, or then living in situations where there's overcrowding, or in situations where they are spending 30% or more of their income on housing costs and essentially not in a position of affordability. Now, in a positive fashion, that 605 units or households represents about 5% of Centre Wellington's households, which is well below the provincial average of 12% of households that are in core housing need. So relatively speaking, the situation at the local level in terms of households in core housing need is not as significant as at the provincial level. If we take one step further and we look at those that are in a severe core housing need situation, so basically those that meet the same criteria as in the first group, except they're needing to spend 50% or more of their income on housing costs, that number of households that fall into this group totals 335. So this gives us a very good indication of existing housing needs that are currently not being met from an affordability and otherwise from a core housing needs perspective at the local level. Part of our analysis, we also considered the ability for Centre Wellington to accommodate future housing growth, to accommodate future population growth as identified through this work, looking at the number of units in the residential supply pipeline. The county has a relatively diverse range of housing that is registered, draft approved, or under review to be built, about 3,170 units. You can see a large share of that is in the form of single detached, about 40%, but also quite a large range of higher density units as well, including townhouses and apartments. This aligns relatively well with the expected built form that our housing forecast and housing needs assessment has identified for the next 10 years. However, where we do see challenges with respect to housing needs and meeting the housing demand over the next decade is on the affordability side. So over the next 10 years, through the forecasting work that we've presented, we've identified a total housing demand of about 3,155 housing units over the 2025 to 2035 period. Of that, we expect about 26% of those housing units to be rentals, about 74% of the total units to be owner-occupied units. However, what's very important in this discussion is that about 23% of overall housing growth needs to be in the form of affordable housing units. And again, those are affordable housing units in accordance with the definitions that we presented earlier. And so this is an important target for the municipality to consider moving forward. So with this technical work completed, we do have a number of conclusions and strategic recommendations that I'd like to present here today. First, to realize Centre Wellington's forecast growth potential, there is definitely a need to expand housing affordability options for a range of household income groups as presented in our study. We do recommend that as part of the next official plan review, the township update the definition of affordable housing to align with the new PPS that was released last year, and also to update the affordable housing targets in the official plan to align with the affordable housing needs identified through this study. The township should continue to also plan for balanced growth by focusing residential development within settlement areas such as Elora and Fergus, and promoting a range of infill and intensification opportunities where appropriate and where servicing is available to really provide for a broader range of housing, particularly those higher density built forms that tend to be more affordable. The township should also consider the development of a growth tracking model that would allow the ability to be able to see how development activity and construction activity in housing is progressing over the coming years against the forecast and the housing needs identified through this work here to help understand how the township is meeting those housing needs. We also suggest that the township undertake a seniors housing study to help identify housing needs and gaps and opportunities with a growing older adult population within Centre Wellington, essentially allowing the ability to be able to identify the need for independent and assisted living and supportive housing needs with a growing seniors population. And also with a large agricultural community in the county and in Centre Wellington, we would also recommend that the township undertake an agricultural workers housing study to identify housing needs, gaps, and opportunities in accommodating seasonal workers in Centre Wellington in that sector. We do suggest as well that the township continue to focus on more compact built form and innovative design with respect to housing development. The township should continue to work with local home builders to expand the supply of more moderately priced ownership and rental housing options. We do see from the data in our analysis that much of the new product is not affordable in nature, and more work needs to be done to help reduce that gap with respect to affordability. The township should also review its local zoning and land use related barriers to identify opportunities to expand housing supply within settlement areas that would allow for more compact, land efficient and environmentally sustainable and price competitive housing options in those locations. Finally, the township should explore alternative development standards where appropriate, with the intent of lowering development costs for housing development. So, for example, looking at the potential for modular homes and tiny home construction where appropriate. Also looking at other considerations such as reduction of parking requirements and other innovative construction methods to allow for smaller units and more cost-effective development designs. We also think there's an opportunity for the township to continue to promote and advance additional residential units. These are called ARUs. They do offer an opportunity to increase affordable rental housing in the community through gentle intensification. The township should now update the official plan policies and zoning bylaw, allowing for up to 3 units of ARUs in total per lot in the form of secondary suites, which would be in addition to the primary dwelling unit, or possibly other types of accessory dwellings such as garden suites or laneway housing, which is now a regulation in the province, and it's important for the township to align with that provincial direction. The township may also consider providing for financial incentives such as grants for homeowners who construct ARUs, as long as it's for the intent of renting out these units on a long-term basis. Finally, through our work, we've also identified that there's a need to continue to expand and support more non-market housing in Centre Wellington. The township should work with its housing service partners to continue to maintain and incrementally increase housing support services and programs, and also to support expansion of the supply of more deeply affordable and near-market housing units to broaden the housing continuum in the municipality. We do believe that the township should also conduct a review of available township-owned lands that could be viable for affordable housing projects, complementing a lot of the work that's being done, looking at federal, provincial, and school board sites in this regard. As well, there's some regulatory tools that the township could consider to help expedite and expand housing supply and development. One is the consideration of community planning permit system, which could be looked at to help support and enable a higher rate of residential development activity. This would be particularly important for expanding opportunities for rental and more affordable ownership options. A CPPS combines essentially zoning, site plan, and minor variance processes into a single application, basically simplifying and speeding up the development approvals process, and also makes it more predictable for the development community in terms of development approvals. The program is also could be set up in a manner that would allow for municipalities to also collect funds to support delivery of affordable housing in their community. Now, considering these recommendations, there's obviously a lot of broader implications in terms of housing that needs to also be considered. First, in terms of planning for growth, especially in a high-growth community such as Centre Wellington, there's a need to continue to find that balance between intensification and greenfield development for accommodating future housing development, and settlement areas should continue to be the priority locations for residential developments, given their access and proximity to amenities, whether that be retail and other community services. With housing development, there comes a need for infrastructure and municipal service needs, and the municipality will need to continue to ensure there's sufficient infrastructure and municipal services to meet that population growth. And finally, financial implications of any potential municipal incentives related to housing needs to be considered in terms of impacts on the municipality from a fiscal perspective. So as I mentioned earlier, this report is considered a foundational study. It serves as a key input into the township's upcoming affordable housing strategy, which I understand will be commencing later this year. This report, we hope, will be able to help guide future decision-making and policy development specifically related to housing policy and programming in the township. We do recommend that this study should be updated every five years to be able to capture, upcoming growth and changes at the local level. And that concludes the presentation for today, and I open it up for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Eric. Councillor Wilton.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Excuse me. I was just a little bit surprised about the recommendation to undertake a temporary agriculture workers housing study. I'm just not sure that we have the type of agriculture that uses a lot of temporary agriculture workers here. We have a lot of cash crop farms and dairy farms, which would be lower in labor requirements. So I'm just curious if that came from the data, because I didn't see anything on that in the presentation, or if in consultation with the local Federation of Agriculture. So I'm just curious where that recommendation came from. Thank you.
Yeah, it's essentially we recognize more broadly that one of the challenges we're facing provincially in a lot of communities is with precarious or seasonal employment. Housing needs for those types of workers is often not well documented or understood through standard reporting. We see, for example, in Center Wellington, you have a relatively low vacancy rate, and also the share of rental housing that you have available is not as high as in other communities, but yet you have a very large agricultural community and agricultural sector. At this point, the recommendation is that this should be considered as something that should be looked at with respect to, are there any gaps or any challenges with respect to seasonal workers and their ability to find housing in the community, whether it's on farm or off site, and whether those workers are having any impacts on putting demands on housing in the community. So again, I think at this point, it's more of a recommendation that this should be considered and maybe explored further to see if there's any merit for to doing further study.
Thank you. And just a follow up to that then, because I think I agree, one of the key takeaways I took from the report is the low percentage of rental housing and purpose-built rentals in particular. And I think in general, it would be all of our kind of staff that maybe are working in the tourism sector in Center Wellington and not just agriculture. So I just wonder if we have enough of a broad recommendation to look at rental housing and purpose-built rentals in general, instead of just focusing on the agriculture workers. But I understand what you're saying, and more broadly across the province, I would totally agree that the housing for agriculture workers is an issue, but I'm just not sure that's our key issue here in Center Wellington. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Adams.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I'm just curious, your recommendations in regards to the ARUs, is that like on any lot within like Center Wellington, or are we talking specifically just service within the urban boundary?
That would apply for essentially any residential designated lot, as long as the servicing can support it.
Okay, thank you.
Do you? Thank you, sir. On page 15, you speak to one of the next steps being to redefine or revisit or update the version of affordable. So I did see the use of attainable on the same page and didn't hear you speak to it, but saw it on the map or on the graph. So I'm wondering where you see both of those. And when it comes to that definition, again, of the affordable meaning, are we talking about federal, provincial, county, or is that a township definition? Where is this update coming from, and how does it align with the attainable word?
Okay, so sorry, you said just to clarify, you said, was it page 16, slide 16?
15, you can see it, and you spoke to us about next steps being redefining affordable, and yet there is the image where it shows the word attainable, and I know we're getting weary of it here at the tables, and I'm wondering how our residents are landing with that back and forth use of the word and no clear explanation of what it means.
Right. Well, our recommendation relates to the definition of affordable housing being updated in the official plan to align with the provincial definition, which is identified in the new PPS, and also the basis for how the affordable housing calculations have been prepared based on the province's housing bulletin. So essentially that definition is clear. It comes from the province. It's a definition of affordability that's considers both market and income-based factors to identify those metrics. And our recommendation was that that definition of affordable housing as identified by the province should be established in the next official plan to be consistent.
Thank you. And just to qualify then, and what happens to the word attainable?
Well, the term attainable is poorly documented by the province. There is no clear definition to date in terms of how that is defined. It's a very general term right now that tends to get used in kind of general terms, and one that we try and actually avoid at the moment because there's no clear definition that we can use, and so we hope that in the future there will be a more definitive description of what the province means by attainable housing, and that hopefully it can be also applied at the local level.
I look forward to seeing that coming forth. Thank you.
Brett?
So just to add to that, through you, Mayor Waters, the problem that Eric just reiterated just came up last week at the National and Provincial Planning Conference, where the term attainable doesn't have a good definition, and no one has one, or most people don't have one. We did our own work a few years ago, working with some students from the University of Guelph on rental housing in particular, and we tried to come up with kind of an income-based definition of what attainable means, because I think everybody agrees that the idea of attainable is, if you think of affordable as being for people with very low income, and a lot of people subsidize housing for affordable, that attainable is kind of something in between. It's more expensive than affordable, but that people with a local employment could afford to buy or rent that dwelling. So that is a challenge, coming up with a definition of attainable, but people keep using the term and the province uses it, and they haven't come up with a definition either.
Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters. Thank you for the overview. Since most of this, it's 2021, correct, when we started this process, and you did mention, this should be updated every 5 years, and I'm starting to see that now. And the reason is our Committee of Adjustment has been extremely busy. We've been approving so many add-on additions, in-law suites, all that. Some of them are being rented out, some are STRs. New condo buildings, many have turned those over to rent them out, the owners, as an investment property. The part that I question a little bit is the social housing. That's done specifically by county, and that's actually not under our purview at the moment. So I don't know how that would work out in the future, or even now, to even have that in there. I understand it's a requirement, but we don't really have a say about that. And so I'm a bit confused by that. I completely agree with the seniors housing study. I hear it from developers all the time. I'm hearing it from tons of residents. Lisa, we need senior housing. I completely agree. And assisted living, that was taken off the table by county. And I hope they take a second look at that because, again, not under our purview. I guess, and the tiny homes, very on point. I'm hearing that too from our senior community. The CPPS, why would we need a committee of adjustment if we go down this path? Why would we continue with that in your overview? Because all of these added homes I'm hearing from the community, you know, especially in heritage areas, and they tie into our municipal services. And I think that's being covered by us as taxpayers. So I just think that we're already out of date with this report a little bit. And so I would like to see more focus, like when we keep moving forward with this on the seniors. That's about it.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilton.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Just to follow up, and this might be more for Brett and Dan, I'm just kind of curious in these next steps. And we heard a really great presentation at the Ontario Small Urban Municipalities from the town of Collingwood, for example, on their affordable housing strategy. And I would say the local level does have a strong role to play in making sure people that live within our community have adequate housing. So whether it's working on our own or in collaboration with the upper tier, we still have a role to play. So I'm just kind of curious on next steps in terms of how do we kind of approach this. I think it's very useful information. I think the information about the low rate of rental units available to our community is a key fact we have to look at in terms of what we're looking at in terms of housing moving forward. So just maybe if Brett or Dan can maybe provide a bit of comment on where we're going next now that we have this base information and all this good knowledge from the report. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Wilton, through you, Mayor Waters. We have, there's reference in the business plan to a number of different housing related things, and we've done quite a bit of work over the last few years in the previous term of council with the Healthy Growth Advisory Committee. We looked at a number of incentives which have made their way into our CIP, but the take up is low, for example. So I think we'll revisit those. The completion of the housing needs assessment will enable us to look at applying for Federal Housing Accelerator Fund, which we haven't been able to do previously in the absence, and that will come with funding, but also with strings attached. Like, we expect that if we were most of the people who get successful Housing Accelerator Fund applications, they get a requirement to allow 4 units per lot in the urban serviced areas. So we've already started to look at our ability to do that and what the legal framework is in anticipation of that. And, I think there's already been some outreach that perhaps the CAO can reference to the town of Collingwood and what they're doing. There's a number of similar examples, and they are largely driven, I think, by municipalities that have gone after housing accelerator funding. So to me, that's kind of a key for us to be able to access that funding.
Through Mayor Waters and further to Brett's comments, we want to take from now until either the August council meeting or into September to look at what staff's recommendations are for our specific role in housing and bring that forward to council for consideration. And we have reached out to municipalities like Collingwood to draw on their experience. But we're hoping to, first of all, get comments from council today on the housing needs assessment, and then leverage those comments as well as Eric's report to figure out what our next steps are, and if it's developing a strategy or determining what we're going to do from a Township of Centre Wellington perspective. I think that will be very good direction for staff going forward.
Councillor McDonald.
Through your Mayor Waters, moving forward, when you bring that forward, I'm looking for up-to-date information on how many rentals we have approved, because we've approved several, and one's being built right up the street as we speak. One has already moved in, and another 2 in Fergus, I believe. And then all the intensification that we've done on existing properties. If I could have an up-to-date value of how many rentals we have created, that would be great for me.
Okay. Any other further comments or questions for Eric? Eric, thank you for your report. I think you've covered it well today. It gives a good appreciation of the numbers here, and it gives some values here that I think for council to digest in terms of what's affordable and where our numbers are within our community. So I appreciate that and your report today. If there's no other questions, I'm going to read the recommendation that the Council Township of Central Wellington receive the housing needs assessment report prepared by Watson and Associates economists, and that the staff be directed to report to Council on future housing related initiatives based on the housing needs assessment on or before September 29, 2025. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, seconder on that. Councillor McDonald. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? That's so moved. Thank you very much, Eric, for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Where are we?
Easy.
Where are we going now?
Where are we going now?
I'm
lost. I don't know about you.
I think we're at 8.1.15 now. Yep. Okay. So we're going to go down to 8.15. And Pat, maybe you can just remind us what that was again.
It's the housing plan. The recreation plan final approval. And I believe we have Jennifer Reynolds from MGA virtually. We have Tracy McQueen and Terry Allman in the gallery from MGA, and also 3 managers, Lucas Rogerson, Matt Tucker, and Bruce Parkin here. So I'm going to give a little background, and then they're here in case I need some assistance with any of your questions. It's a pleasure to present the report for the final approval of the Parks and Recreation Plan. This plan represents a crucial step forward in shaping the future of parks and recreation within the township and aims to address the growing needs of the community. The Parks and Recreation Plan has been developed through extensive community engagement and reflects the feedback and priorities of residents. It is important to note that the consultants determined no significant changes were necessary to the drafts based on the feedback received. Instead, community input has reaffirmed the action items and themes outlined in the plan. As the population is projected to increase to 58,000 by 2051, the plan provides a strategic vision guiding the township to addressing the needs of current residents while preparing for the future growth. Since the draft was presented, there has been a concerted effort to gather input. Online engagement was facilitated through Connect CW platform, enabling residents to submit feedback via the online form. A social media campaign that ran May 22nd to June 12th effectively raised awareness and encouraged participation. Additionally, 150 postcards were distributed at community events featuring a QR code that for easy access to the draft documents. Presentations were made to the Healthy Communities Advisory Committee on June 4th and to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee on July 10th. The open house held on May 29th attracted 144 participants and received overwhelmingly positive feedback regarding the plan. In summary, the Parks and Recreation Plan establishes a solid foundation for the community's recreation future, promoting flexibility and adaptability in navigating upcoming changes and opportunities. It is strongly recommended that the Council support the adoption of this final plan to continue investing in activity, health, wellness, and satisfaction of residents. I look forward to your questions or comments, and thank you. I'll return it back to you, Mayor Waters.
Thank you, Pat. Okay, Council. Comments, questions? And yes, Councillor Adams.
Thank you through you. Super excited to see this here today. It's been a lot of work by consultants and staff, and I know there's been a lot of input and consultation with the public, which has been amazing. Just wondering if you could kind of take us through kind of like next steps after today.
Sure.
Thanks.
So we still have the final item, which will be presented to Council from our consultants, which is the feasibility study and business plan for a multi-use recreation facility. So they're taking the feedback. We did both projects consecutively so that during the engagement strategy for the Parks and Recreation Plan, they were also receiving feedback for the multi-use recreation facility. So that will come back for council's consideration later. And then what we're taking is this entire 30 years of recommendations, and it's also going to inform the upcoming DC study, which will be completed by the end of the year. So we're taking all of the recommendations, costing them out over 30 years if they're new builds and part of the DC study, and making sure that those consultants have those pieces in order for council to see the impact the plan brings to that study. Also, we will be coming back at the 2026 budget meetings with what we consider a pretty fulsome list of capital projects over the next 30 years. They're not all new builds. Some are renovations, rehabilitations, replacements. So all of that in there so council can have a very full picture of what it will take to financially implement these projects. Each recommendation, by approving this report, you're not approving for us to move forward on any specific item. It comes back to council as a report if there's budget implementation action items or things like that. So overall, it's an overarching plan for this municipality for 30 years, and we'll be bringing back significant any costs or anything like that or policies that are recommended back to council as we move through the plan.
Thanks. Thank you for that. That was really helpful. I think what I saw through the plan is that there really is something for everyone within the municipality here and the residents from, all ages, all abilities, which I think is key. And I don't think there's been a real substantial investment in parks and recreational facilities for quite some time. There were a couple projects kind of mentioned there, and I'm glad that they're all going to be coming and no decisions are made today. But I just kind of want to go on the record. There was a reference to a JEC ice expansion and a multi-use, what we're referring to as a MRF facility, which again would see something for everyone. And I would just like to put on record my strong desire to see that MRF facility receive some priority and come to council when it's appropriate for staff to bring it. So again, I think the community consultation on that was loud and clear, and I know our residents have been waiting a long time for a real investment in Parks and Rec. So thank you very much.
Great.
Yeah. Councillor Evine.
Thank you, through you. I'd like to take a minute and acknowledge what my colleague said. Absolutely. I 100% agree. And I'm just going to support that a little bit further by saying more detailed. We have an opportunity to speak to our residents every day. And you heard all the requests from walking tracks to expanded baseball or basketball and pickleball. And you heard everything that they asked for, more ice, everything. And I know that it was a really good report. I also agree that a multi-use would be wonderful, but I really want to take a minute and thank you and your team because you heard what our community said.
Great, thank you.
Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters. Again, I think I said it before, you really, in my interview process during the consultation, I get to relate what I hear in my community, and I think it was all captured, but the overview is we need something in Parks and Rec across Center Wellington. It's everywhere. We're definitely in a deficit in many, many areas, and this sort of ties it all together of how we're going to move forward, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Councillor Wilton.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Just a kind of specific question on page 39 of the main plan. We have short, medium, and long-term recommendations for the indoor facilities. And under medium, it says, as the ice needs study for new twin pad moves forward, assess options for another multi-use recreation facility. So I'm just curious why we would need another study at that point. Do we not have enough data? Are we saying we'll need to update data in about 10, 15 years? Is that kind of where that's getting at, or just
Yes.
Want to just, it
Yeah.
looks like we need
So
to build a lot.
I believe section 6.1, 6.2, and 6.3 identify the need to continue to ensure that the plan is relevant. It recommends updating it every 10 years to ensure that, to touch base with the public demographics and everything to make sure that we're on track. Rarely do we see a plan in recreation that goes out 30 years. So it was a bit of a unique project in that sense. But we wanted that so that we could, because we knew that was where our growth numbers were going. So it's always important to touch base at certain points to make sure, and especially when you're talking about sending the capital money that it would take to build a MRF, an arena, indoor recreation facilities, you want to make sure that even though you've said it today, this is what it would include: an arena, I believe, there's an indoor ice facility recommended in the short term, and then there's also one in the medium and the long. So you don't want to plan on doing the long one until you've actually concerned and made sure that that is still the need. So that's an example of doing that, whether it's soccer pitches or ball diamonds or rugby fields or dog parks. We have to check in before we move forward.
Councillor Adams?
Yeah, I'm not sure, sorry, if any of the consultants want to add anything to that. No. Okay, great, thanks. Great.
Councillor Adams.
Thank you, through you. I think my last question, and I think what was kind of nice to see in the active transportation plan that came by is like we were already starting to implement some of that feedback that we've received in all of that consultation. And you guys received a lot of, great feedback from residents and user groups and such. I know so in that short term, or even just what available within our current operating budgets right now, I know there was some of the comments by the user group seem on the smaller level, but could really kind of help improve kind of the activities. There was mentions about, poor internet or needing more modern scorekeeping technology or these smaller kind of things. Do we have that opportunity to kind of take some of that feedback and start working with these groups or feedback that we've received through this consultation to kind of get these smaller items kind of worked on?
I think you're accurate in saying there are some immediate, what we would call low-hanging fruit that we can probably tackle immediately. And so it's actually the whole report is broken down into what we would call immediate, short, long, short, medium, long. So within 3 years is sort of that very, very short, needs attention right away, gaps. There's also things mentioned in there that we've already started to tackle, like the priority registration. So things are doing that. And so to answer your question, yes, there's an opportunity to do that. It requires each manager to take their section, to review, and then how does that come forward in the business plan and in the budget plan?
Another question?
Yeah.
Yep.
Just for clarification purposes for the public, MRF stands for
multi-use recreation facility. And indoor, it's an indoor MRF.
An indoor, and can include an indoor track.
Yes, absolutely. I would say that indoor walking was the number one item to bubble to the top. But it's difficult to build an indoor track with nothing to support it because it's usually around something, whether that is a turf facility, a gymnasium, an arena, or other multi-use space. So that's why it's part of a MRF. Yes.
Yes, Councillor Walton.
Thank you. Just a quick question on the park side of things, so trails and environmental stewardship and kind of that ongoing management and enhancement of our natural spaces. Just curious, how we'll make sure those things get in this queue for priority-wise. Those are things that to me could be started pretty much right away, but I recognize they probably need staffing and that kind of thing as well. So will that all be captured as well in terms of next steps, in terms of budget items that might come forward in that, just to maybe if we don't have enough staff to take care of our parks properly, or I'm not saying they're not taken care of properly, but to the invasive species, for example, and some of those other additional items, and making the education piece around how can we increase habitat for pollinators, all those nice things that a lot of municipalities are doing. Just wondering if you could comment a little bit on how we make sure we have adequate staffing and appropriate budget amount for those types of things as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I haven't got the plan right open specifically. Was there one or two specific items you were thinking? So that the staff are here right now, the managers. So if you have something in your mind, it's a good chance for you to express that. But I can share that, yes, every item will be considered. Budget, staffing strategy will come back. Before we change a level of service, we have to make sure that we have the resources to do that. And that's council's decision to change the level of service and then for us to operate through that. Was there something specific?
It's probably okay for today because we have such a long agenda, but
it's a lot of things. So absolutely, we talk a lot about the indoors because they're so expensive, but there was a lot of recommendations under soccer pitch, sports fields, as well as natural environments, as well as playgrounds, improvements to current parks, as well as growth of what should be new neighborhood parks. And it marries well with the active transportation mobility plan, because now we can think about how the trails through a park connect to the rest of the community, and is that a trailhead, and all of those kinds of things. So it's all very matched, and that was intentional. So.
Just a quick follow-up. Could you remind me when that levels of service kind of comes back to council? Is that an annual piece that we would see that? I just don't remember seeing something for parks, for example.
Right. So for parks, there's a lot of information in the parks plan. So we'll be coming back with some of those recommendations. Whether it's how to acquire parkland and things like that, how much land is needed, how can we do that, acquire that. So that's a bit of land acquisition as well as some recommendations in there. But specifically, there's the urban design guidelines. Am I saying that right? Urban guidelines that tell us, I can never say it right, it's urban design strategy guidelines. It is what says which goes in what kind of park, but also in the Parks and Recreation Plan, it specifically states, this is what should be included and the size in the Parks Plan of your different types of parks. So level of service, I would ask anyone else, the CAO, whenever it's not a specific level of service document, or is that I'll let you answer that one. Thanks.
Through Mayor Waters, level of service is talked about at a higher level in our asset management plan, but it would be on staff to bring forward recommendations, probably typically through the budget process, but it could also be through an independent staff report that just comes to a council meeting to outline recommended levels of service and financial implications of that. So I don't think there's a specific timeline around it, but more likely it'll be through the budget process.
Councillor Bolton.
One more question. I can't find it right now in the report, just quite a few pages, but it's the kind of naming and sponsorship policy. And I know it was recommended in here somewhere to continue that and to continue working with the private sector to work on that, which is fine. I do think at some point it'd be nice to look at that policy again. And I do believe it was supposed to come back annually, but I'm not sure if that was a set in stone type thing to come annually to look at or get an update on it. But I would appreciate being able to see that policy again. It has come up from some of the members from the Healthy Communities Advisory Committee on the approach to naming parks and facilities and things like that. So just wonder if that could get a little bit of a deeper dive at some point.
I'll make a note of that. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm not sure it was coming back annually, or it may have been something we would report on annually with the budget, what has been achieved and what has happened. But I know that the naming of parks policy has been something that we have been tracking to try and bring forward. And then the naming rights on facilities, I know that that's been up as a question, but I don't know whether we need to revisit the whole policy or just have a more thorough conversation from that meetings. At HCAG, yeah.
Okay. If there are no other questions from council, I'd like to thank you and your staff and the consultants and in the community and council for all their participation in this. This has been a long process, a lot of input. I think we're all generally very excited about this. It's a big thing, a big deal for our community. And it's going to be a plan and a study that's actually going to be used. as opposed to having something that comes along and then it's shelved. But this is directional. This is going to provide us direction for the next 10, 15, 20 years. And it's a very exciting time because it's a reflection of a building, growing community, which I think we're all very excited about it. So again, I'd like to thank everyone for their participation on this. I was trying to think of how many times I've seen this presentation, but I know it's been out there and it's been received by a lot and in a very good way. So I'd like to thank you and your team that way. Yes. Do you have a question or comment? Yes.
Yes, through you, Mayor, everything you said. And I just want to quickly note too, and I just want to thank staff for bringing forward us that opportunity to purchase the additional land around the sportsplex, because many times we know when municipalities start down this road with these plans, a lot of the issue is being able to obtain land. So how exciting is it for us that, that's not a barrier as we kind of work through this plan. So yeah, just again, thank you all.
Okay. With that, I'll read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington approve the 2025 Parks and Recreation Plan, inclusive of the Parks Plan and Needs Assessment. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor McDonald, seconded Councillor Adams. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So move. Well, good job, everyone. Okay, now
Go back to solar.
we're going. Martin, how's your voice? Is you ready to?
8.4.
Yes.
Right, shots of people into their cars.
Okay, so when do we do this, Martin? You're going to have to wait just a little bit longer. You'll be able to. I'll get you to do a little Mozart when you come up here. But let's take a 7-minute break, okay? And we'll be right back. Thank you.
finally, in that GHG reduction step is generating renewable energy. So that's a great, that's kind of the icing on the cake. It's generally accepted that the benefits of renewable energy generation, and for us in particular, it was reduced and stable energy costs over its life cycle, contributes to the goals of the IESO and the global efforts towards decarbonization, significantly contributes to the township's own climate goals, energy conservation measures, and ultimately operation costs too. Increases the diversification and stability of the grid's energy mix, as electricity needs are expected to double. And photovoltaic solar installations are low maintenance and have a long lifespan of up to 30 years. So some of the kind of considerations were involved in the types of systems, namely what's called net metering and load displacement. For those who are not familiar, I'll just do a brief overview. For a net metering system, you're really using the grid itself as almost like a large battery storage. So you really can consider your entire energy needs over the year, and kind of plan for that. So when solar energy generation is reduced, especially during the winter months, then the excess of that energy during the summer months can then be credited and used during that time. So it covers more of your energy needs. The load displacement is more of a time of use, and this is generally an ideal situation where you have an industrial unit that is using an intense amount of energy constantly over a 7-day period. So basically, any energy generated that's time of use reduces your costs. If you're just as an office building, or you're there not on weekends, and you really have to undersize that system because none of that excess energy has anywhere to go, unless you include a battery system, and then again, you're restricted to that capacity. So those are the main considerations. So I'm going to go through 4 different options. So again, net metering then. In this design, the existing infrastructure is being optimized. So the garage roof and the admin center, both really great orientation for solar gain. And so with that as well, we're able to really size a system up, which is based on our energy needs over the entire 12 months to gain as much efficiency and payback as possible. Here is, again, based on a net metering system. Here is a carport design. Again, I think in the drawings here, it doesn't kind of optimize the entire space of the parking area, which would increase our capacity as well. I will look at, there's a comparison chart that will look at the end to weigh up our options and our recommendations. I mean, there are other benefits to the system. It's highly visible, and it also kind of provides shade for parking, reduce snow maintenance, salt, and also can capture rainwater as well. But with this system, though, there are higher upfront costs with the actual hard infrastructure to support the panels. Here is a load displacement system, ideally with a battery energy storage as well, so you can take some of that excess. But you can see even from the diagram here that the sizing is greatly reduced from using the entire area of both roofs. As I said, these examples are really good when there's high energy uses as well, or a smaller system, because also you can actually take advantage of the Save on Energy incentives, which currently reduce the cost by half. With the battery energy storage system, then there's other kind of infrastructure and space requirement needs, and also currently looking at maybe a replacement period of 10 years. So then you have to factor in that amount of money every 10 years to replace those systems, and requires ventilation, etc. as well. Here again is just the same design for the net metered rooftop system, with all the benefits of the existing infrastructure, like I said, covering your energy needs. But there is with this net meter system, there is a opportunity for to enter into a power purchase agreement. Basically, so that we know upfront costs for the installation, but then because you've borrowed that money, then your return and payback is less. So you're kind of locked into a lower energy costs. Currently, right now, on average, a time of use between the peak loads and the cheaper is around 17 cents per kilowatt hour. In this situation, we would pay 11 cents per kilowatt hour to the provider, and then so saving of 6 cents per kilowatt hour. That the cost of that would increase over time, roughly 2%. But there are savings, and these are ideal for situations where that upfront cost and money is just not available. Yeah, so looking at some of the grants available, so all of these systems, really systems would qualify for the federal clean electricity investment tax, so basically a 15% reduction, and then a load displacement system would qualify for the Save on Energy incentives. I think I skipped over one. Is that there? It is. Oh, there it is. Okay. Right. So in the comparison chart here, this is based on our indicators of how much energy we use over a 10-hour day, looking at kind of when people start and when people finish, over 5 days a week, and then the sizing of the system is all based on that. So with the estimated costs, annual savings then are based on how much our energy needs are and how much basically energy you're not paying for over that time. Based on the size of the system, what the predicted maybe operation and maintenance costs would be. And then from that was calculated estimated time per payback in years, the net energy savings. Again, with a situation like the others I presented earlier, really big environmental benefits as far as emission reductions as well. And there was the social benefits there of kind of like how visible our sustainability goals and actions are regarding the car park system or rooftop mounted solar systems there. The calculations were made, they're very conservative because they were based on energy costs right now. And those energy costs with the energy expanding needs over the next 30 years are predicted to double. So once we're kind of basically making our own energy, then we're saving twice as much as the system goes along. So although for option one, which is the one that's been recommended, it gives us the largest system, the infrastructure, the roofs are already in place. That number of 1.25 million on savings on energy actually will look more around in the 2 million mark over that 30-year period. So great returns. So for those reasons, like I suggested, that for the upfront costs as well and our annual savings, to recommend that the net metered rooftop system be considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Comments, questions? Councillor Wilton.
Thank you, Martin. Great presentation and report. I appreciate the comparison chart there to see it all laid out. So that's good. Just in the option one, there was a comment that there can be compromise to the roof structure. I assume there's engineering solutions to take care of that, but I just wanted to double check since it was in the report. So thank you.
Yeah, good question. So through you, Mayor Walters. Yeah, I mean, there have been some issues historically once you kind of compromise the envelope of a building, whether it's penetrating the roof or whatever, then you can come into that. It's very rare, and I think the way that things are engineered and the companies that are provided these quotes have been putting a lot of very large commercial operations in. The other consideration as well was the engineering and the kind of capacity to hold the weight of a solar installation, and that was already kind of worked out with Ball Construction as well. Yeah.
Councillor Evoy.
Thank you, through you, sir. Thank you. Also, great report. Interesting that you mentioned that BESS often require 10-year lifespans. So that's interesting. Not well. Yeah, anyway, just interesting. Is there any way for us to engage in conversations with some providers to consider potential motivations for homeowners to go solar? Like, is there a way for us to partner with some of those organizations? Ultimately, we're saving our own electricity. Is that something that we've discussed or something that we're prepared to look at? We did it with toilets. Maybe we can find a way to do it with solar panels.
Great question. So through you, Mayor. So there are very public kind of advertising on the Save on Energy incentives. Facebook's, well, maybe just my Facebook feed because I'm always following environmental news. But there's lots of different incentives, even with transitioning to heat pumps and all those kind of things. And so as far as that, the encouraging with that's kind of in my discussion earlier. Again, it was like looking at the jurisdictions and the roles of upper tier. So the County of Wellington, with their energy advisor, can provide information and kind of advice on energy transition needs, and also with their housing efficiency, energy efficiency transition program they're trying to implement as well. Then that's to make that whole process a lot easier for residents, and there's an educational element to that as well. So we're kind of looking, how to promote.
I would be curious, and I always am reticent to ask more of our staff because I recognize how busy y'all are. But I would not want to count just on the county to help us roll something like that out. And I would love for down the road for there to be some sort of a potential of partnership with some other organizations so that we're not waiting on the whole county to come forward with this. And maybe we can take a little bit of the reins ourselves and see what we can do about getting Center Wellington on board first.
Three minutes, just to answer that quickly then. As far as the next steps of having like a climate portal on the CW website as well, where information and direction can be found on saving energy, on different ways of moving around, all those different things to be like a landing spot. And then to attach it to what other incentives and what other counties doing and other kind of organizations. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you. Great report, Martin. And no concerns with your option one recommendation. This question may be for Adam or yourself, Martin, I'm not sure. But if there's agreement around the table here on option one, I think it was noted that estimated costs are just over $600,000 on that. And we have an upset limit of 1.2 million because we weren't sure which options we were going to go for and everything. I'm just wondering if we should revise that amount to bring down if we know that we're going in option one and we have a good idea of those costs.
Through you, Mayor Waters, thank you for the question. Councillor Adams, I would be reticent to make any adjustments to the capital budget for that, understanding that we have a GMP, but we also have a limited amount of contingency. Once that project does come to a close, if it does come in under budget, those dollars will be kind of recirculated back to their appropriate funding sources at that time.
Any other comments, questions from council? You mentioned even having a portal on CW because obviously there's the county's doing a program, as you know, and also the feds have programs that way. And I think it's sort of the more we can make the public aware of these opportunities that way, I think that's really good, to pick up on these things because, because the opportunity of solar to help with all our energy cost is definitely a real, and as the technology is changing, it's becoming a lot more efficient and more affordable. So as well, so maybe that's something staff could take away and then maybe bring it back at some point. To say, hey, here are some opportunities that we can get the more information out for the general public that way. But I'll leave it with staff at this time. So. Okay, so if there's no other comment, I was going to move along. I was going to do that. Thank you for keeping me on the straight and narrow. Okay, so recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington endorse the recommended solar panel system at the new operations center described as option 1 and outline in report number IS 2025 and 26, and that Council authorize Township staff to receive competitive bids through the general contractor for the project for the inclusion of solar panel system to an upset limit of 1.2 million as outlined in report number IS 2025-15. Mover for that, Councillor Wilton. Seconder on that, Councillor McDonald. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Thank you. Thank you, Martin. 8.5, intersection improvement recommendation. We have Adam to speak to that. Yes, Adam Gilmore to speak to that. Welcome, Adam.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Waters. Hello, members of council. So here with you today to talk about a few reports, kind of back to back here. I'm just waiting for Devlin to throw up a map for me. Thank you, Devlin. Okay, I'll start talking while we're waiting for that. Here we go. Okay, so based on recommendations of the Active Transportation Mobility Plan to focus on intersection improvements along walk and bike to school routes, the report before you outlines recommended improvements at 4 intersections in the township. The intersections are BD Line, Side Road 18, Farley Road in Fergus, BD Line, Millage Lane, and Elliott Avenue East in Fergus, Gart Shore, Middleton, and Forfar in Fergus, and David Street and Irvine Street in Elora. The report recommends short-term improvements to be implemented before the start of the 2025-2026 school year, and more permanent capital improvements to be implemented in 2026. Recommendations are based on traffic and pedestrian count data collected in June 2025 and technical assessments completed by staff. So just an overview of the improvements that are recommended. Before September 2025, we want to implement new all-way stop at BD Line, Side Road 18, and Farley Road. We want to post new crossing guards and implement school crossings at the intersection I just mentioned, plus BD Line, Millage Lane, and Elliott Ave, at Gart Shore, Middleton, and Forfar, and at David and Irvine. Then in 2026, we'd like to install a new Type C pedestrian controlled pedestrian crossing, or PXO, at Irvine Street and David Street. And we'd like to maintain the crossing guard and school crossing location at Gart Shore, Middleton, Forfar. We want to install full traffic signals at the 2 BD Line intersections. And then after we've implemented those capital improvements, we'll reassess warrants for permanent crossing guards at all of these locations, with the exception of Gart Shore, where the crossing guard will remain. Staff are seeking council endorsement of the recommended improvements and approval of an operating expenditure of $17,500 in 2025 to hire 4 new crossing guards. Capital improvements in 2026 will be budgeted and approved through the 2026 capital budget development process. And here's a map of those locations. So that's everything I have, and happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Thank you, Adam, for your presentations. Councillor McDonald.
Hear you, Mayor Waters. Thrilled about the one at David and Irvine. So that will be similar to Salem. Perfect. I like that. Thank you. 8th line. I see we're still keeping it at 60. You couldn't have known. So I'm going to ask you here. On the weekend, I actually was approached by residents from 8th line. They want it back to 80. And I did hear from some in Mapleton too. So I'm just going to leave that with you. And the third one is there a possibility to do a flashing light at Geddes and David? There was a severe accident there about a year ago or so, and I've had a few requests for that. So I'm just going to a possibility to look at.
We're on these items now, so those are sort of an addition. So I think if there's an opportunity to talk to Adam later, we're not going to review those right now. Okay. Okay, Councillor Yvonne.
Thank you through you, sir. Thank you. Adam, to you and your team. I know that we have received several emails. I say we, meaning you and I, and I'm sure as have many of my colleagues. But this tells me yet again that the staff are listening. This tells me that when you get these concerned citizens sharing their worries with you, with us, that you're listening. And I am 1,000% behind spending this money to make our streets safer and keep our children safer. So thank you so much for this report and for your plan to go forward.
Okay, any other? Yes, Councillor Wilton.
Super quick. Agree with Councillor Evoy for sure. So thank you for bringing this forward. I know the people in the Middleton Street will be happy. I know that it's pretty close to both Garifraxa and the trail crossing, so I understand why you can't put a crossing there, or not looking at that right now. But will it kind of stay on the list as that side of Fergus continues to grow, that maybe 5 years down the road we can continue to look at it and kind of see how it works out with the crossing guards? So is it a big transport trucks using that street, not just cars? So it is kind of dicey up there these days. But yeah, just confirming that it'll stay on the list for future, just if residents continue to feel the crossing guards not quite enough.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Wilton, for the question. So through Mayor Waters. So we've hired a transportation technologist, and they've just recently started. And we have a pretty ambitious work plan for them to be reviewing all of our intersections and making recommendations. And that it will include periodic, coming back to them and reviewing them. And as we have new data, things are getting busier. We're seeing more traffic, more pedestrians. We want to be kind of staying on top of it, updating our count and turning movement information, and then making recommendations based on warrants.
Councillor Adams.
Thank you, through you. Something you just said kind of just triggered me here. So not triggered like in a bad way, just like my memory. But yeah, you had mentioned the traffic studies, and you're like, I know the team is doing so much, and we hear in whether through the community groups or from our residents, all these concerns about safety. And sometimes I can see they're on these community groups that our traffic study boxes are pictures are being taken up, and they're like, what are these things? What are they doing, and whatever. And I wonder if there's an opportunity through social media or something to actually maybe take a picture of that and just kind of say, hey, we are doing these studies. We are actively kind of doing this. I just wonder if that might help with a little bit of awareness or education and kind of showing kind of the good work you guys are doing. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Adams. So just to respond to that through the mayor, that's an excellent idea. And we'll work with our communications team to put something out that just shows what we're up to and what some of these different devices they see are. Right.
Councillor Evoy and then Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. I'm smiling. So I look at this from a budgetary lens again, and I hear that we're looking at frankly, updating, fixing, correcting, and bettering other intersections. I just want us to, again, be cognizant of the fact of how this will affect us, and to make sure that as we look ahead at our budget, that we actually have a line that speaks to traffic safety, because I don't know that we have in the past. I look to Adam, but I don't believe we have a line that speaks to that. And I think it would be prudent for us to consider having such or some version therein of a line that speaks to this, because it is going to cost us money. As we're growing, we do need to make these spaces safer. And I think that this is the way we do it. So thank you, Adam, for acknowledging that as I speak. And thank you, other Adam, as well.
Through you, Mayor Waters, I completely agree with Councillor Adams over there about black cats and where they are. And I've just come from the background where we actually don't tell residents where they are. So we're capturing the relevant information, because sometimes when folks know where they are, they're slowing down and it's not actually regular traffic. So I just, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor McDonald. So through the mayor, so I think that we won't, we wouldn't necessarily alert people as to where we're putting them, but it may be, from what I understand, I think the idea is a more general kind of education posting of this is what it is if you see it. I would suggest that most drivers don't pay attention to them or really notice them. They're quite discreet. But if people do, then they understand what they are. But yeah, I don't think we would alert people as to where we're installing them.
Any further comments or questions from council? Okay, thank you for your presentation, Adam. I'll read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington endorses intersection improvement recommendation as outlined in a report number IS 2025-24, and that council approves an expenditure of $17,500 to hire 4 new crossing guards starting in September 2025 through to December 2025. As per recommendations outlined in report number IS 2025-24, and that council directs township staff to bring forward operating and capital budgets needed to implement proposed 2026 intersection improvement through the 2026 budget development process. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Craddock, seconder on that, Councillor Evoy. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So move. Don't leave. Adam, please. Item 8.6, posted speed limit bylaw update.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So staying on the topic of traffic safety and posted speeds, this report provides an updated bylaw to bring into legal effect the recommendations of the annual speed limit review and traffic calming report, which was presented to council in April of this year. The updated bylaw will implement all the recommended speed limit changes from the April report. It also includes 2 new recommendations I want to highlight. One is to reduce the speed limit on Jones Baseline, former West Garifraxa, from 80 to 60 between Side Road 5 and Side Road 10. This change is being recommended for consistency. We had modified the speed limit in that area in a prior year, and there was kind of just a piece that was still 80 in between 60 zones. So we're changing it to make it more consistent. The other change includes lowering speed on Weisenberg Road from 80 to 60 between Wellington Road 21 and the township limit. Staff received concerns from residents who live in this section of road after the April 2025 report, and we ran it through our TAC tool to determine what and the standard process, and determined that it was more appropriately set at a 60 kilometer per hour speed limit. It is a gravel road. So pending approval of the updated bylaw, staff will begin installing updated speed signage in summer and fall of this year. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Comments, questions? Councillor Evoy.
Sorry, yet again, through you, sir. I'm very passionate about this. And it's funny how often we hear people complaining about the speed limit being reduced, and then in the next breath complaining about tickets and being accidents. I think what we're doing is responsible, and it's keeping the safety and well-being of the residents front of mind. So although I understand that for some people the reduced speed might be an inconvenience, I think for the general population to have a speed that helps us to keep our community safe is number one. And I'm grateful personally to see these changes in speed limit across the board.
Any other? Yes, Councillor Adams.
Thank you, through you. Agreed. And I also just actually want to follow up on Councillor McDonald's comment. I think you meant it for this report, but I had also been made aware about the 8th line in terms of residents are contacting Mapleton. I guess there's a lot of Mapleton residents that use that as well. And I'm just kind of curious, and it doesn't have to be answered right now, but if staff could take that away. It sounded like there had been some speed reductions there for some time for a particular issue, and whether the TAC study would still warrant the speeds that are currently existing there, just as a takeaway.
Okay. Any other comments, questions from council? Okay. Thank you, Adam. I'll read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a bylaw to regulate speed in the Township of Centre Wellington and to repeal bylaw 2024-67 as outlined in report number IS 2025-19. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, seconder on that. Councillor McDonald. Any comments? Any more questions? Okay, all those in favor? So moved. Thank you. And then one more. Active Transportation and Mobility Plan, Notice of Study Completion.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Waters. So on June 16th, last month, Township staff presented the preferred active transportation network and policy recommendations to report IS 2025-23 to Council for information. The purpose of this report is to seek Council endorsement of the ATMP preferred network and policy recommendations and to direct staff to publish a notice study completion, which puts the final report on the public record for a 45-day review period in accordance with the municipal Class E process. So during that time, people will still be able to comment on the report. Since the presentation on June 16th, staff have received some questions and comments related to the draft report. Questions and comments were really focused around the Middlebrook Bridge, Middlebrook Road Boundary Bridge, the closed bridge, and how the inclusion of active transportation desire lines through the bridge will impact township plans to remove the bridge without replacement. Township staff have responded indicating that the Middlebrook Road Boundary Bridge and implications of the ATMP recommendations will be discussed in more detail during 2026 budget deliberations. So pending council authorization, the ATMP report will be posted for that public review that I mentioned. Study completion in the Wellington Advertiser starting this Thursday. The final report can be downloaded from the project webpage on connectcw.ca. Thank you very much. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Adam. Comments, questions? Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters, thank you for recognizing Middlebrook Bridge. That's great. I know the group has been trying hard. Do we know, I haven't reached out to Woolwich yet, but do we know, are they going to be working on an active transportation plan as well? And have you been in touch with them?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor McDonald. So through the mayor, so we have been working on scheduling a meeting with Woolwich to discuss the 2026 budget, given that they're also holding budget for the removal of the bridge, and we have not yet had that meeting with them. I'm not sure about their plans in regards to active transportation, but that's something that we can certainly discuss with them when we have that meeting, hopefully soon.
Yes, Councillor Walton.
Thank you, Mayor Waters, and through you. I just, again, this fun day today because we have all these great projects coming forward and been a lot of work put into this one. And I appreciate all the engagement that's happened over the last year and a half even. And I just think this is very forward thinking on behalf of the township. And I really appreciate all the work that staff put into this. And I think it's a really interesting and informative plan. And I look forward to seeing pieces of it get implemented over the years to come. So thank you for all your work on this and for the whole team that was involved and the consultants. I think they did a great job. So thanks, Adam.
Any further comments or questions on this item? Again, thank you and the community. Again, this is one that I know we've spent a lot of time and effort on this, and you can just see it through the report and really how caring the community is about and passionate about active transportation. So thank you to you staff and thank to consultants and again the community. Okay, I'll read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington endorses the Active Transportation and Mobility Plan and directs staff to publish a notice of study completion for the study as outlined in report number IS 2025-25, and that Council directs staff to bring forward program studies, projects, and policies included in Active Transportation and Mobility Plan for consideration in capital and operating budgets deliberation. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Welton, a seconder on that. Councillor Craddock. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Hallelujah. Okay. So now we move down to item 8.8, winter activities risk management programs. And Lucas, you're still here. Welcome back.
Well, good afternoon again, Mayor and Council. I am here again today, returning to present the finalized winter activities program. We met and presented a program back in February with winter activities, and it was requested that we return with a more formalized program, which we're here for today. In consultation with the township's insurance provider, as well as legal counsel, staff reviewed the feedback from council and propose this new fulsome plan for the installation in 2025-2026 winter season. This new plan, this plan includes all the details provided earlier, with the addition of operational schedules. Risk mitigation efforts are detailed within the report, as well as communication strategies and the staffing requirements that were approved in the February report 2025 CS 2025-10. The costing and budget implications are also included here today in the report to employ the winter activities for the season. There's a couple of things to mention that are different in this report, or that are updated to here. The identification of the sanctioned toboggan hills includes Southridge, Foot, and Ferrier. A portion of Ferrier. So you can see in the identified plans, we have assessed the section of Ferrier to the east, and the barricades that we're able to put up in the form of straw bales to make that a safe tobogganing area. So we'll employ that measure, risk mitigation measure, this year, and that is advised also by our insurance legal groups. We also have guidelines for the community ice rinks, as well as timelines and inspection schedules set up there. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I'm going to read the recommendation first. Recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington approve the Winter Activities Risk Management Program as outlined in Report CS 2025-20. I'm going to ask for a mover on that, Councillor Adams, seconder on that, Councillor McDonald. Comments, questions?
Thank you, through you. Just want to thank you and your staff for this. This wasn't really anticipated, but I think you guys have done a great job. And, you know, it's a big part in our community, right? Going out in the winter months and seeing children skating outdoors and tobogganing. So it'd be nice. Great to see them doing it. This hopefully doesn't come too soon, but then the next winter season.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Councillor Wilton.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Waters, and thank you, Lucas, for the report and the work on this. I'm just curious with the staffing. I know it sounds like I'm asking to increase the budget by a lot today, but I just want to make sure we're not skimping too much on staffing, I guess, because if it's a part-time seasonal labor position, but maybe there's an opportunity to make it full-time year-round if we also need additional park staff in the summertime. So I just want to make sure we look at it from all angles when you're done bringing forward budget ideas for the 2026 budget, just because we know this needs to happen because of all the extra work and making sure the hills are up to par now. So I just wanted to mention that as making sure we look at that carefully. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor. So thank you for that. And we are cognizant of that. And we will be bringing forth some recommendations during the 2026 budget items.
Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters, just jumping on what Councillor Wilton said, you know, I recognize staff time. I mean, we're in Foot Park, we're going to be putting hay bales, like all of this adds up, getting the hay bales on the truck and taking them out and placing all this stuff and more signage. And so I would support that as well if that came forward. And plus, thank you for putting hay bales. I think the kids are going to be excited. Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Okay, we had a mover and seconder. All those in favor? So moved. Thank you, Lucas. Thank you. We're skipping down to 8.10. Is that correct? Yes. Ontario enhancing access to spaces for everyone. Grant for Bellwood Hall renovation. I see Casey in the corner of my eye moving towards selection. Yes, he's still here. Okay. Welcome, Casey.
Thank you. Mayor and members of council, pleased to present a promising funding opportunity, the Ontario Enhancing Access to Spaces for Everyone, which is EASE grant administered by the Ministry for Seniors and Accessibility. This grant aims to improve the accessibility of community spaces across the province for a focus on inclusive design and individuals with disabilities and older adults. The Bellwood Hall renovation project aligns closely with this grant's objectives, particularly in supporting projects that incorporate universal design features and innovative accessibility solutions. Staff propose pursuing the maximum available funding of $60,000, which, if successful, would be directed specifically toward the accessibility upgrades of the front entrance and the washroom facilities at Bellwood Hall. This grant represents a key step in addressing the funding gap previously identified in Report CS 2025-13, which was presented to Council at June 16th Council meeting. As committed, staff continue to explore all available grant and partnership opportunities to support the completion of this important project. The EASE grant stands out as a strong candidate to help reduce financial pressures and keep the project on schedule. So we respectfully request Council support to proceed with this grant application. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Casey. Comments, questions? Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Thank you very much. I don't think we should turn down any grant. I think we should apply for them all. Doesn't matter what it is, which brings me to we might be coming to the point where we might need a staff member just for grant writing to support all the departments. So I just want to put that out there as a part-time. So I'm adding on to,
Today's the day, I guess.
another request. But I recognize how much I've done grant writing, so I recognize how much time goes into it. It takes away from other staff's time when they need to be at a site or they need to be doing other things where there are specific jobs that are just focused on grant writing. And I think, yes, of course, I will support this.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions from council as relates to this item? Okay, thank you, Casey. I'll read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington supports an application to the Ontario Enhancing Access to Spaces for Everyone EASE grant under the Ministry of Seniors and Accessibility for Bellwood Hall renovation project. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Craddock, seconder on that, Councillor Wilton. Any further comments or questions? Yes.
Just one quick comment that sometimes with Ontario government grants, you can't get multiple grants from the province on different programs. So just, I guess, the last step before submitting the application is just to double check that there aren't better.
I have checked, and this grant does allow you to
this one does
stack other grants. So yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
That's what I like, a bunch of keeners for grants. Okay. So we had a mover, seconder. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. And good luck with that. Okay. Item 8.11, 2025 Corporate Business Plan Progress Report. And I see Dan is scurrying up to the lectern to provide us his report.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. This report outlines the mid-year progress report for the 2025 Corporate Business Plan. In short, staff have been very, very busy for the first 6 months of the year and anticipate the remaining 6 months to be just as busy. We have outlined a brief progress or action update for each item identified in the approved plan, and keep in mind, we have not changed anything based on what council approved as part of the 2025 budget process. We have, however, added a few additional pages to the report. There's 2 additional pages showing significant unplanned additional projects that have been added throughout the first 6 months. And we've added 1 final page outlining a few projects that we believe we will not be able to finish this year, and we're looking to defer them to 2026 and consideration there. We are finding that an annual business plan is very, very useful from a staff perspective. We use it during SMT conversations. Senior team uses it with discussions with progress with their managers. It's a good way to track progress throughout the year. We continue to refine what it looks like, what's included in the business plan, and we would like authorization to continue with the process as part of the 2026 budget. And with that, I'm not going to go through specifics on each project, but the senior team is here to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you, Dan. Comments, questions? Councillor Evoy.
To you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Dan, and to you and your teams. With regards to creating an annual business plan, how much resource does it require to build that annually to make sure that we allow for that on the outset? If this is something that you and your staff are comfortable using, want to make sure it doesn't cost us more than it's worth at the end.
Through Mayor Waters, it is It does take a little bit of time to pull together, but we do it in conjunction with the 2020s, in this case, 2025 budget, and in the future 2026 budget. We had made changes within my department over the last few years to add strategic initiatives as a major part of the communications division. So we've been planning for the rollout of this for 2-3 years now. And we feel that it's time well served in terms of helping us plan further into the year.
It's our job to trust you. So I will assume that you'll make that work. Thanks.
Councillor Adams.
Thank you. Through you. It was really helpful to add that summary of like the unforeseen in there. And I know as these unforeseen kind of reports come to council, sometimes it's unforeseen whether they're going to impact some other priorities of the business plan or something until like maybe there's a group of them or something or pulls on certain resources. But I just would encourage like when we're able to and when stuff feels like there is that awareness there at the time where these unforeseen reports coming, whether we just make sure that we're really kind of clear that, you know, by approving, sometimes unforeseen is like emergency and we have to deal with that. And those unforeseen ones are coming up, but there's others that are not. And so just kind of being clear that, you know, you say yes to this is going to impact particularly one of those things in our current budget year. And I know sometimes that warning has been given, but just when we're able to.
Through Mayor Waters, yeah, we'll try to keep council informed on that. It's easier for us to tell you this is an unforeseen item and it will take significant resources, but it's even harder to say what other projects it may impact. We almost have to wait until this situation where we're at mid-year to try to assess that piece.
Any further comment? Yes, Councillor Walton.
Yeah, I guess kind of along those lines, but I am a little bit concerned that sometimes when projects come up and they're going to bump things, and particularly in the parks realm of things, something comes forward because there's a donor or something. So all of a sudden that's the priority, where I'm a little worried we're bumping projects that are a priority to maybe lower income neighborhoods, or they should still take priority. And we can say to the donors that came forward and the people trying to promote those projects that they can wait till next year. So I'm just kind of curious how we can maybe look at balancing that in terms of making sure we don't get too off track, because if we start getting just more and more and more opportunities of people, it's great. People come forward with money. That's always very nice. But if we're always just bumping things that maybe are in neighborhoods that don't have those opportunities. So I just worry a little bit about that. So there are a couple examples this year where people came forward with significant donations and that happened, kind of bumped the queue. Just want to be cautious of that. So don't know if you want to comment on that or have any thoughts on that or how we can balance that moving forward.
Through Mayor Waters, we typically, in most cases, I would say when there's a significant donor coming to the table, we do a staff report to council. So I think that's the time where we have this discussion. What are the implications of this project on other projects, or is this a priority? In our strategic plan, there's a piece in there about finding alternate sources of funding. So having these donors come to the table is fulfilling a piece of the strategic plan. So there's that argument as well. But I think it's at the time, sometimes it's difficult to go to a donor and say, not this year, because sometimes it's a spur of the moment discussion around a project in that given year. But we can certainly have that conversation with council when we bring those donation requests to the table for approval.
Okay. Any other further comment? Yes, Councillor Walton.
A fairly specific question. Just the guess it's under governance, create and implement a co-op program. It's an HR project and it says it's complete. So I'm just curious, project completed, does that mean we now have a program that co-op students can be hired through, or what does that exactly mean with the co-op program?
Through Mayor Waters, we broadened the scope of that, and it's more of I think we called it an assistant program. If you recall, through the 2025 budget, council approved a number of assistant positions, which were either 4-month or 8-month positions. For the most part, HR has developed a process where we would actively recruit these assistant positions and, where necessary, re-recruit in future years. So we felt like it was too narrow-minded to just look at co-op, but it could be co-op or people that are not in school looking for part-time career work. So it's something that HR completed, I think, fairly early in the year so that we could hire those assistant program people in 2025.
Okay. Any other further comments or questions from council? Thank you, Dan. I'll read the recommendation.
Mayor Waters, one more thing.
Yep.
There is one amendment that staff would like to make on page 23 of the business plan, which is under governance. There's a comment around Colborne Street reconstruction. When we created this, we had anticipated going to tender that week, but we are not quite to tender. It's number 12 on page 23. So the comment should read that we're going to tender next week. So it's happening in mid-July. We're just not quite there yet. Page 23 in the actual progress report. It's under provide innovative and sustainable governance, number 12, which is the third item down. It says tender for construction has been issued. It should say that it will be issued in mid-July.
Any further comments or questions from council? Okay, thanks, Dan. I'll read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington receive the report CAO 2025-14, 2025 Corporate Business Plan Progress Report for information, and that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington direct staff to prepare a 2026 Corporate Business Plan in conjunction with the 2026 budget process. Do you have a mover for that? Councillor Craddock, seconder on that. Councillor Evoy. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Thank you. Now we move down to 8.12 RFQ 5425, and I see Adam moving to the electorate. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. This report provides recommendations and seeks council approval for award of request for quotation 54-25 regarding supply fans for the Clyde Street Sewage Pumping Station. Recommendations are that the council authorize the award of request for quotation 54-25 to Bellwood Electric Limited at a contract price of $54,349.18, and that's excluding HST, and that the project funding be revised to facilitate the award. The RFQ was issued to 2 pre-qualified electrical services contractors for water and wastewater treatment plants. Both contractors submitted a bid, and the recommended details an award based on lowest price. This work was not budgeted in the 2025 equipment replacement forecast. Therefore, it is recommended that the cost to replace these fans be funded from the Environmental Services Equipment Replacement Reserve. And with that, I'm happy to field any questions.
Thank you, Adam. Comments, questions from council? Okay, seeing none, Adam, I'll read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington award request for quotation 54-25 or backspace to supply fans Clyde Street waste water pumping station to Bellwood Electric Limited at a contract price of $54,349.18, excluding HST, and that the project funding be updated as shown in report Core 2025-39 dated 14th July 2025. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, seconder on that. Councillor Craddock. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Thank you. 8.13 requests for, it seems like 18, requests for tenders 5025 and 5125 MCEA wells 3 and 7. Adam.
Thanks again, Mayor Waters. This report provides recommendations and seeks council approval for award of requests for tenders 50-25 and 51-25 regarding monitoring and production well drilling for locations 3 and 7. Recommendations are that the council authorize the award of the request for tender 50-25 to Aardvark Drilling Inc. at a contract price of $1,188,850, including contingency and excluding HST. that the Council of the Township of Center Wellington award request for tender 51-25 to Lotta Water Technical Services, Inc. at a contract price of $2,499,601.24, and again, including contingency and excluding HST. And that the funding for this project be revised as outlined in Report COR 2025-42. Both tenders were issued in accordance with the Township's Purchasing Procurement Bylaw. One contractor had submitted a response to the monitoring well drilling, and 2 responses were received for the production well drilling requirements. This recommended award represents award to the lowest price responsive and responsible bidders. And it's worth noting that capital budgets provided a funding allocation of $1.8 million for each of wells 3 and well 7 for a total budget of $3.6 million. The upset limits of the monitoring well drilling and production well drilling contracts exceed the approved budget allocation by an amount of $633,859.72. As this project is debt funded, it was recommended that the shortfall be funded from additional debt proceeds to be issued in the future. And this project is 100% growth related, therefore all future debt, principal, and interest payments would be funded from development charge proceeds. And with that, I'm happy to field any questions the council may have.
Thank you, Adam. Comments, questions? Councillor Adams.
Thank you, through you. Just curious, any explanation or assumptions of why we might have only seen one contract, like one bid on the one and 2 on the other? It seems low and not ideal, but I don't know, based on similar RFPs in the past, or just.
Yeah, we're going to ask Adam to address your question there.
Okay, thank you for the question, Councillor Adams, through the mayor. I'll take the tough questions, I guess, on this one. So yeah. Okay, so this is what I'll start by saying is that this is highly specialized work. These types of assignments don't come up very often in Southern Ontario. There aren't a lot of communities in Southern Ontario. They're wholly reliant on groundwater for municipal water supply. And as a result, I think it's the market reflects that, and that there aren't a lot of contractors that have the specialized equipment needed to drill these types of new municipal production wells. You know, I can't even tell you the last time the township installed a new municipal production well. Some here might know, but it doesn't happen very often. So I think that, that said, there's maybe not a lot of competition in the market, but I will note that the contractor that was successful in both cases. One, it was Aardvark Drilling. The other's Lotta Water with Aardvark subbing the drilling services. They are a very competent contractor. We've worked with them before. We're confident that they can get the work done. And I think that, it's unfortunately we would have liked to have seen more bids, but that's the nature of this market, I think.
Any other comments or questions? So, Adam, I'd already read the recommendation. So do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, seconder on that, Councillor Adams. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Okay. We'll move down to item 8.14, 2025-26 budget recommendation. Adam.
Thank you again, Mayor Waters. This report builds on Report COR 2025-30 that was presented to Council at the June 16th meeting. And it's really to include a public consultation process targeted at informing the township's 2026 budget. It is recommended that the public consultation process include a survey that will be released in September, have staff participation at the public open house on October 21st, and opportunity for members of the public to delegate to council on December 2nd in conjunction with the 2026 budget deliberations. No further changes have been made to the staff recommendations, so at this time, staff requested this report be received for information, and I'm happy to field any questions or facilitate any conversation with the table.
Thank you, Adam. Comments, questions from council? Councillor Wilton.
Yeah, I just thank you, Mayor Waters, and thank you, Adam. I'm happy to see the public participation back in there, so I assume that's going to proceed with we don't need any further approval from strong mayor powers, or is that something that'll be taken care of quite easily?
We've seen this addressed, and thank you for the question. We've seen this addressed in a number of different ways with different municipalities since the introduction of strong mayor powers, certainly with the additional municipalities that were included. In some instances, they've taken the staff recommendations and they have the mayor give staff direction to proceed with a various number of things that would help build a staff budget in advance of the actual presentation of the mayor's budget, which initiates the clock for a budget passage with the opportunity for, recommended changes and the mayor's veto possibilities. So we've heard, I think, quite clearly at the staff level that there's very little interest in kind of rocking the boat in terms of how we roll this out. So if this is received by information or for information by council today, I think it would be staff's direction that we would just continue with the standard process, understanding that there's a general authorization with this council that's how we intend to proceed.
Thank you for that. And my next question is to do with the fees. I think it's 2.5% is the recommendation that it would be increased. I am curious if there's any way to look at things like the parks and recreation, like swimming lessons, for example. I just think families are facing some difficult times right now and some challenges. So I'm just curious if we can just make sure before we just assume a blanket rate that I know it does say something about where there's particularly pressure points on different fees, but I would like to see us keep those fees as low as possible for families in our community. So if that could be something that can be kept in mind as we go through the process, that'd be great.
Any other comments, questions from council? Okay, thank you, Adam. I'll read the recommendation that the Council Township of Central Wellington receive report Core 2025-40 for information. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Evoy, seconder on that. Councillor Craddock. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Thank you. We now down to 8.16, administrative monetary penalty system. And we have Carrie to the left of me who's going to speak to that.
Thank you. Through you, the Municipal Act allows municipalities to establish administrative monetary penalty systems, in other words, AMPS, which is an alternative parking bylaw infraction administration structure that includes an efficient dispute process and replaces the traditional POA system. Establishing an AMPS program will move the dispute mechanism for violations of the township's parking bylaw from a court-based system to an administrative review model. The AMPS provides an objective and efficient process where penalty notices are issued, managed, and reviewed. Over the past several months, staff and Alpha Parking Solutions have been working with MTO through the application process to qualify to enter into an agreement to access the ARIS database. A requirement of the application is the adoption of this bylaw and establishing the positions of the screening officer and hearing officers. The township retained the services of KML Municipal Consulting to assist with the drafting of the bylaw, including all the mandatory policies and procedures. The next step in the implementation of the AMPS program, staff will continue to develop and undertake additional policies, procedures, and bylaws, recruitment and training of staff, software implementation, and development of a communication plan. Staff estimate full transition to AMPS program by November 1st. I know that sounds ambitious, which should also align with the implementation of the paid parking program. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Carrie. Comments, questions from council? Councillor Welton.
I was just curious. I didn't see the financial implications in the report because I think I see hiring and training staff, but maybe I just missed it.
The financial implications, there wouldn't be anything new. I think there is a new position associated with this, along with short-term rental and licensing. So we haven't done anything. We're in the process of I'm developing a job description and that sort of thing. But I think we will initiate this with that position ongoing because we haven't got to the short-term rental part yet. So hoping to straddle. There is enough work for a new position to assist with the rollout of this program. But I still have to develop the job description and hire that position.
Any other comments or questions from council? Okay. Thank you, Carrie. I'll read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Central Wellington receive report Core 2025-38 regarding administrative monetary penalty system for information, and further that bylaws be adopted to establish an administrative monetary penalty system AMPS and establish the position of screening officer and hearing officers, and further that the municipality clerk be authorized to execute an agreement with the Ministry of Transportation, MTO, to access the MTO ERIS database for registered vehicles owner information to administer the AMPS program with the agreement based on content and in a form of approved by the municipal clerk. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Craddock, seconder on that. Councillor McDonald. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Okay, we're here. Bylaws. 2025-44, a bylaw to authorize a fundraising activity in the form of soliciting a toll booth on Metcalfe Street Bridge in Elora. Yes.
Sorry. No, you go ahead.
Okay. Second one, were you excited about that? 2025-45, a bylaw to authorize a fundraising activity in the form of soliciting a toll booth on Tower Street Bridge in Fergus. Next, 2025-46, a bylaw to regulate speed in the Township of Central Wellington and to repeal bylaw 2024-67. Next, 2025-47, a bylaw to establish a system administrative monetary penalties parking. Recommendation that bylaws 2025-44 through 2025-47 be read a first, second, and third time and pass, signed by the mayor and clerk and corporate seal affix. We have a mover for that. Councillor Adams, seconder on that. Councillor Craddock. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. And notice of motions. Motions where notice have been given. Confirmatory bylaw, a bylaw to confirm the actions of council recommendation that bylaw 2025-48 to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held July 14, 2025 be introduced a first, second, and third time and passed in open council. To have a mover for that. Councillor Evoy, seconder on that. Councillor Craddock. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Mover for adjournment. Councillor Wilton, seconder on that. Councillor McDonald. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Yes. Okay. Well, there you go. We're out of here. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. That was a big agenda. Thanks for everyone's participation. And we'll see you soon.